Now, joining me to discuss the results thus far, Times of Israel journalist Carrie Keller-Lynn and diplomatic correspondent from the Israel-Hayom Daily, Ariel Kahana. Thank you both so much for joining us. I understand that everybody has had a very long night counting the votes. So first off, it seems like a decisive victory with the right wing coming out on top, but is this going to be a stable government? If any one party leaves, or we could see, if any one party leaves, rather, we could see a repeat of what got us into the repeat elections in the first place in 2019. Ariel, let's start with you.
Hi, Ernest. Thanks for having me. So I would say the following. First of all, the victory is not a right-wing bloc victory. It's Netanyahu's personal victory. He did once again the unbelievable, fighting, I would say, against everyone. He didn't go even through, the media here in Israel. It was almost all the campaign through some journalists and channels that support him and social networks. Okay, he didn't go to channel prevalent. So, and he managed the campaign. He managed the messages. He managed the block. Right? He combined, if you remember, between Smotrich and Ben-Gvir. So he is the winner for sure. Now, what will happen with the coalition, whether it will be stable or not, is the same. It depends on him. If Netanyahu will go with the ideology he promised, the ideology is that now the entire bloc, the right-wing bloc, is supportive of, and that means reforms in the legal system. That means a right-wing policy in Judea and Samaria, and so in some other topics, if you want, we can go into it. So if he will follow the ideology of the bloc, so then he can definitely have 4 years in seat with a very stable government.
So, Carrie, what's your take on this, and what does it say about what's important to Israelis that the far-right, Itamar Ben-Gvir and Smotrich party are the third largest party? What is it about the religious Zionists that resonated with so many voters?
You know, I spoke with a couple of analysts in the space this morning about it, and both Ben-Gvir and Smotrich have similar ideologies, but they really speak to different audiences. Aside from the fact that Ben-Gvir is seen as more of the anti-establishment character, whereas Smotrich himself is much of the establishment, Ben-Gvir really spoke to voters who are disillusioned with Israel's current security situation, specifically internal security, lest we not forget that we are in the middle of a long, prolonged wave of terror. Just this morning, there was another stabbing attack. And Ben-Gvir, whether or not he's able to deliver upon this, promises voters that he will act harshly against this. He, last week, 2 weeks ago, was seen going into a flashpoint Palestinian majority neighborhood of Jerusalem with a gun, wielding a handgun, saying that he himself was going to go there to protect Jews in the neighborhood. Now, whether Ben-Gvir, who has never served in the military because his views were seen as too extreme for the IDF for service, is the person for this job, remains to be seen, and whether or not his views will more incite the street rather than calm it, again, remains to be seen, but that is something that prompted voters. On the Smotrich side of the equation, a lot of religious Zionist voters moved to Smotrich not as much out of identification with his ideology, which represents the right-wing flank of the religious Zionist spectrum, but rather for a couple of reasons. One, in the fall of Yamina, the former ruling party that now didn't even make it onto the ballot in this fifth election since 2019, voters had to choose a place, and a lot said that they would vote for religious Zionism as a party that was closest aligned to its values, but not perfectly aligned. And then second, a lot of voters turned to religious Zionism because they were frustrated by Yamina's choice to join the outcoming government, and not just join it, but to sit on top of it, and saw that Bennett had sold out their right-wing ideology to sit with a government, including left-wing and Arab actors, in order to be prime minister.
All right, well, following the poor showing among the coalition parties, speaking of, coalition officials are again blasting Prime Minister Lapid, actually, for cannibalizing center and left-wing voter bases at those parties' expenses. Ariel, would you agree? Would Labor and Meretz and National Unity, for that matter, have done better had Lapid played his cards differently?
Oh, for sure. Actually, Eran, if we will go back to the first election on 2019, what happened here is just a question who arranged the bloc better. On 2019, the first of the 5 elections, Naftali Bennett began the Yamina Chadash, the new right. He left then the Beit Yehudi party, and he failed in the threshold, right? He would almost reach 4 seats. but he didn't. And that's why Netanyahu then, on the first election on March 2019, if I'm not wrong, that's why Netanyahu then didn't have 61 and he failed. What happened then to Netanyahu happened now to Yair Lapid. Lapid didn't arrange the bloc the way he should, and that's why Meretz didn't cross the minimum limits, the threshold. He had to force Michaeli to accept Meretz and go together with Meretz. And of course, it has to be said that Michaeli's arrogant refusal to go with Galon, with Meretz, that's the reason why they failed so strongly in those elections and actually lost power.
Well, when it comes to maybe arranging the bloc from on high, Lapid attempted to organize a merger between Meretz and Labor. Carrie, should they have joined forces in hindsight? Were they maybe short-sighted in not joining?
Again, hindsight is kind of an unfair way to look at this.
Sure.
But from the perspective of Michaeli, at the time, sources close to her said that this was not just about this election. It's also about building for Labor's future. When Michaeli inherited the party 2 election cycles ago, Labor was on the precipice of falling out of existence, out of relevance. It was not projected to enter Knesset, and she rallied the party to about 6 or 7 seats. And Michaeli really sees a bright future for Labor. She wants it again to be a ruling party.
Well, there are those in Labor who are calling for her to resign now. There are those who are calling on Michaeli to resign now from within her own party.
Well, I'm trying to explain her rationale for taking the step she did, not necessarily whether they were successful. Obviously, with the benefit of hindsight, we see that Meretz absolutely did fall into danger, and whether or not her gamble of building for Labor's future was worth endangering this bloc is one question. Another question is, even if Meretz were to make it into Knesset, would that be enough to either form a government? Likely not. Or block Netanyahu from doing the same? Again, likely not.
All right, well...
And I must say, the question is whether it's a realpolitik or illusional politik.
Right.
Michaeli might have very nice dreams, but practically the numbers are very clear. She failed, and that's why her bloc failed as well.
All right, Ariel, Carrie, thank you both so much. We're going to come back to this panel in just a moment, so stay on the line. Thank you again.
Hi everyone, it's Emmanuel Kadosh. I wanted to invite you all to subscribe to ILTV+, where you can find our daily news and updates about Israel. And not only that, but live feeds, entertainment, our kosher food show, and so much more. Needless to say, your subscription to ILTV+ helps us grow and create more content while also supporting the state of Israel. Our app is available on all platforms and devices, so I'll see you guys there.